We're here today for another discussion. Here we have Shannon Braswell and Shane Kennedy, and I'm David Gornoski. And how you guys doing?
Oh, doing
Good,
great,
man.
David.
Yeah, it's all
Well, I
good.
really wanted to have you guys on to talk about AI. Shannon, I think that was an AI talking in the back. Is that an AI speaking to you, or is that what is that noise?
It sounds like that, don't it? It's that's Devin Morrison.
Okay,
He's a beat maker. He's actually out of Florida,
okay.
Orlando.
She's still making
Really?
music like that?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Sounds just like that, or is that some of his older stuff?
No, that's some of his recent stuff.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
It's very calming.
yeah. It is right,
yeah.
Yeah.
especially in
Well,
times like these.
a lot of people have come on recently on my program to talk about AI, and Cyprian was one that came on recently. He was known as Vin Armani on the Showtime program that he was on, but he talked about AI as demonic. He thinks it's inherently demonic and should be avoided and not touched or played with at all, just like a Ouija board. So, what do you guys think of AI? Open chat, he distinguishes that between generative AI and like functional AI for increasing mathematical equations, but generative AI like Chat GPT and those art, he finds that to be inherently demonic.
Mm. Yeah, I wonder why that is. I mean, I know there's been a lot of articles in the news recently about the dangers of AI. I think one of the earliest ones last month was one about Pope Francis in a puffy white coat. I don't know if you guys ever saw that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was shown in like a puffy white coat. And they were like, oh, this is this is not real. And then one following after that, I think they used Joe Rogan's voice. They had like played with his voice, and the AI was saying like, this is not me. I'm not Joe Rogan, but this is my voice. If this is what if it was AI, like this is what it would sound like, stuff like that. So you know, um, following after that, there's been a lot, coming out by from Elon Musk talking about the dangers of AI. I think one of um, a recent retiree from Microsoft has talked about the dangers of AI. Um, Somebody from Google has talked about the dangers of AI. So you know, I mean, recently, I think there's been a lot of concerns about how much AI can sort of take off and be sort of independent of human, you know, um, human authority or human engagement.
Mhm.
That'll start sort of having a level of sentience, and he can do things on his own, right? And then, of course, with the elections coming up, there's been a lot of fears about that, like tampering with, the elections and politics. And then, lastly, you know, malicious malicious players, people that want to use AI to do harm to humans. So you know, I think that's a big concern um, as far as that goes. But I think right now AI is still under the control. It's still something that human beings can manipulate or do stuff with. But who knows? This could be a matter of time before AI is able to do it on its own. And the question is where we're going to go from there.
Hey, what do you think?
Well, I don't really think we fully grasp what AI is because there's an inclination by a lot of people. They want to make it they want to make it they want to make AI into like the Frankenstein's monster that worked, you know? That what we're going to do is we're going to create this artificial intelligence which is kind of like the next evolution in life for people that subscribe to that as being their reality, and they're looking at AI and they're seeing it as being the next evolution of life that's going to displace humanity, mankind. I think if you're of that worldview, if you are a materialist, then that is probably going to be the thing you're going to worry about. I think the biggest concern for regular people like us to be worried about is I think it's twofold. One is that so much of our reality has become digitized. You know, social media. You can look at banking. You can look at the way that you interact with the world. A large part of it is either done through like subscription services, and it is done from home through digital means, or it's done through this thing, whenever you are places. And the other aspect of it that I think is concerning is what it will do to the economy. I think AI will end up displacing a lot of workers. I don't really think anybody knows to what degree people are going to be displaced, and really who is going to be displaced. But I think it will probably have a similar impact to what the invention of the steam engine had. A similar impact to the invention of electricity. The internal combustion engine. Because so much of our world is digitized, I kind of view AI, at least the non-nefarious parts of it, as being being an optimizing of digital efficiency, in many ways. Now the question is what impact will that have as far as the dignity of the human person, and what safeguards do we need to take to protect the dignity of the human person, as far as protecting our communities, protecting our families, and protecting our way of life.
So you don't think it's inherently demonic?
Well, that I don't know, David. So something that I've heard multiple people say is that what ChatGPT and what this artificial intelligence is, it's a bunch of what they call logic gateways. It's a complex network of logic gateways, and what they will argue is that these logic, complex as they may become, there is one thing that they will never be able to do, and that's generate something at random. When we're able to just, if I ask you to pick a number between 1 and 100, that's a query that the human mind can do, that AI will never be able to do. In order for AI to pick a number at random, it has to have some kind of a formula or some kind of an algorithm to tell it, okay, pull the current time, pull the current date, subtract 4, multiply it by 2.5, and then you have your random number. But there's really nothing random about it. The human mind can, on the other hand, select something at random.
So, but I'm wondering why he thinks it's inherently demonic. You were talking about Cyprian. What's his name? Cyprian or Cyril? What's his reason for saying that it's inherently demonic? Is it like,
because he says it's like a Ouija board, how basically it's just it's like a mind. You're conjuring a mind that minds think the way your brain thinks is you're able to process like one idea, and then you say a word, and it instantly, in a very short amount of time, you're able to connect it to another word that is in your archive of connected words or ideas or symbols. And that's basically what the AI is doing, is that it's basically it's creating a false mind made in the image of human beings, which is going to be inherently something that will be demonic at its core, because it'll be conjuring like a talisman or like a genie bottle, and it'll be a shortcut to work and things that will really distort the human person and take over so much of the economy in a way that will warp the integrity of the people.
Yeah. Well, I think one I think one this may be a positive or a negative, but they're um, you know tech gurus or whatever have been testing out AI with legal matters. So they've been able to use AI to draw up like arguments in court, which if you talk about jobs being taken away, you know, there's going to be a lot of attorneys out of work, right? Or maybe they might bar that. The Supreme Court or judges might bar AI from being used within the court. But again, you know, um, that does beg the question, like what that's going to mean for a lot of people as far as labor, the workforce. You know, then at the same time, me and Shane were talking about this a little earlier about how all those script writers for a lot of the TV late night shows and things like that are on strike right now. And I think Shane, you said they were thinking about using AI to replace a lot of these script writers. And what that, I guess, what kind of angst that must cause, for a lot of these writers. But I mean, that's, I guess I'm saying that to say, there's pros and cons to this. You know what I'm saying? There's some maybe it's like, well, now a lot of these big players, like lawyers and attorneys and script writers are getting paid lots of money. Now they're gonna know what it feels like to take advantage of people who are having to live day to day, having to make ends meet. So they spent their lives working in a particular area of life, building a skill set, or whatever. And now that's not going to be, they're not going to have that, so they're going to have to get in line and work like the common man, maybe. So.
Yeah, I that's what I was telling Cyprian. You gotta watch that episode with him because he makes a very in-depth presentation that I'm not going to do justice for his entire thought process behind it. But that was one of the things I said is, is that something that you think would be a positive, because maybe it would help if you could automate so much of the fluff part of our economy, advertising, logo design, web, and all these things that are kind of, so much of our economy is seemingly geared towards these type of jobs, and that might free us up to be able to get back into the world of atoms as it was, as it is, and be able to get back into doing things of real substance rather than always being so much of our economy being motivated by the world of bits. That's the way Peter Thiel says it very well. I like the atoms versus bits world. Now he says we haven't innovated in the world of atoms since the 60s in any significant way. And people are always so confused by it, but it's like so obvious really when you think about it, that we haven't done anything great. We can barely get back to the moon back when they had, I mean, you look at that little object, that thing was on the moon. That thing looked like something made with aluminum foil. I mean, that thing they got the camera panning up. I don't know who that guy is they left on the moon to pan up when that thing flies back out of the camera view. You see the camera pan up perfectly. Once it goes out of sight, it stops. It's interesting how they left that guy up there. But besides that, you have to wonder, we can't even get back to the moon, and all we can do is a direct-to-video sequel. Direct-to-video sequel. It's like after you watch Air Bud 5, what does Air Bud 5 have to offer? It's coasting on the intellectual property of Air Bud the first. But now Airbud 5, he's joined by a squirrel, and now he gets a squirrel. And aren't you excited to see how that squirrel's going to put that basketball in the basketball hoop? That's all we have to look forward to. Now we're going to go back to the moon, but now it's going to be more diverse.
Right. Yeah.
Now, I don't know, but that's not exciting, And Shannon, let me talk to you about that. Do you want that to be the only thing you look forward to? Is that, well, hey, now it's going to be a black person and a white woman on the moon, right? Instead of it being all white guys, right? Do we want it to be that way, or do we want it to be like, okay, wait a second, we're going to Mars next week. It don't matter what you look like. Get in the rocket, let's go. And furthermore, why can't we challenge physics? Germany right now is shutting down the last of their nuclear reactors because they say they're not green and they're not sustainable.
Right.
We just had Oliver Stone on the program, and he's talking about how insane that is. Yeah. We are ruled by people who hate entities or something that hates human beings. When you look at demonic possession, the exorcists always report that the demons like to get the humans to feel how filthy they are, how dumb they are, how dirty they are, how useless they are. The demons will often talk to the humans and say, you nasty little apes. You put food in one little tube and it goes out the other, excrement. They always like to get you thinking about how filthy and pathetic and disgusting you are. You can't do anything. And you couldn't ask for more demonic, policies than saying, let's scrap all forms of energy that's available, and even scrap nuclear energy and go to intermittent winds and solar panels and stuff like that can't be scaled in a way that can take care of the poor. Right. And I think we're in this fever dream because we don't have any consideration for the anthropology, which gives us the incarnational action of the church. And that's what I'm just saying. That's the thesis of so much of what's driving me to talk about these things. And I think AI is included in that. I think AI is demonic. I think Cyprian might be right. I'm not sure. Still thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think thinking about technology and science in any form, it's like a double-edged sword. You know what I mean? It can be used for good. It can be used for, to help humanity. But of course, it can also, there can be nefarious people, malicious people who want to, say, okay, there are people who think, okay, we should stop populating the earth. You know what I mean? We don't need any more babies, being born, something like that. You know what I mean? Who knows what, say, somebody who's, a very, far left progressive might want to use AI for, maybe it might be propaganda, saying, if you do this, these are facts that, like they generate some kind of, propaganda in order to, say, scare people into not wanting to have children, right? They say, well, the world is coming to an end, right? You better get prepared for that. Having children is a bad idea. You know what I mean? There's going to be some kind of pandemic that was worse than, COVID-19. You better prepare for that. Armageddon is coming. So, I have mixed feelings about, artificial intelligence. I don't want to say that it, is totally bad, right? But I think that there are a lot of malicious people out there who can, who are very intelligent and very smart, who can generate, I guess, cataclysmic and chaotic events, using artificial intelligence, right? But I don't want to, I don't necessarily want to say that AI is completely, I don't know if I want to say it's demonic, you know. I think it has the potential to be demonic, right? Just the same way that it has the potential to do, you know, good, right? And you know, that's just I think that's a moral question, or just an ethical question that we probably still need to work on and, you know, discuss like we're doing now. You know, I think there's places for it, and I think that, you know, there's places that maybe we need to question whether it should be used in that arena. You know, so that's, you know, that's what I would want to say. You know, yes, there is a possibility that there's going to be a lot of jobs that are going to be taken away. You know, maybe even mine, right? But at the same time, you know, you can think about like the good that'll come out of it, like, you know, you were talking about, like then it, you know, now human beings can really start focusing on, you know, the big ideas, the big tech, you know, being able to, you know, go from one planet to the other, or, you know, things like that, you know, and do we want to do that? You know what I mean? What does living on another planet look like? Is it, you know, is it really, you know, worth doing that? Right. You know,
I think we have to get to a point where we're content to live on Earth, but we have to change the technological dynamic in terms of our relationship to the sovereign and its corporate oligarchic interests. And I think because of the internet's ability to distribute information in a much more rapid way to the public, we have an opportunity to do something special. There's often been considered this thought that that revolutionary technologies like unlimited energy would be stifled from the public. And it's easy to say, well, that's a conspiracy theory, but we've seen now what the FDA will do about drugs that can help you if they're generic and so forth, right? When you're in a vital life or death situation. So it's not hard to believe when our entire government and cartel oligarchic system is completely big pharma and military based and energy based, that they would do anything in the world to keep those things stifled or unfunded, like they're doing with the nuclear reactors. They're shutting them down and right in front of our faces. And we don't think that there would be somebody with a great vital interest to make sure the unlimited low temperature nuclear energy that doesn't have the downside of needing to be a giant reactor with uranium where you could use water. You don't think there's anybody with a financial interest that would want to stop that. So it's probably true that there's been something like that along the way. But now with the internet age as it is, you have this slim window of opportunity to be able to, well, possibly, maybe it'll stay for a while, to be able to get information out to a product or a discovery or an invention to the public faster than they can shut it down, faster than they can create disinformation about it. And if it's safe and there's no nuclear radiation, I think that's the game changer. Because what happens is that once you have the ability to take care of your family without requiring the grid and the wars for the oil, once all of that's eliminated, you're in a whole new paradigm relationship between you and the sovereign and its cartel oligarchic interests. And at that point, you can then start to set the terms of the relationship a little bit more to humanity's perspective. Like marriage will go back into the domain of the private sector, meaning the contracts and obligations of that sovereign covenant would be mediated by your church institution rather than this insane monopoly that says, I'll determine the rules of these relationships. And you say, well, no, I don't want you to. And they say, you can't survive without me. I provide your energy. I provide your electricity. I provide your heat for your winter. I provide, your gas with the wars that I do for those countries abroad. I provide you cheap, affordable gas, reliable pipelines, and all these things. You can't do it without me. And just like Truman, from the Truman Show, you have to have that moment where you look at that. I don't know if you've seen the movie, but you look at that guy who's created this construct and said, I've given you all of this. And you say, I don't need it. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Bye-bye. And that's the moment we have to get to. That's what all true folks should be thinking about every day. Every man should be thinking about how to help that. And if you are not an engineer, you may be an artist, then help by making a logo or, whatever you have to do as an artist. Make a sculpture to help raise awareness or paint or make a website or put $20 a month into a GoFundMe for somebody who's doing something that's credible. That's where all of our energy and attention should be.
Yeah. But I guess the question is then, like when we speak about the church, right? What is the role, say, of the church, regardless of what denomination you come from, right? What is I suppose, being from a particular denomination is going to, guide your thinking, in all of this. But what would be the role of the church, in facilitating some of this progress, real progress that, we're talking about seeing, I don't, maybe you could say, well, the church has already kind of done, the church has kind of already done its job or something like that. But I don't know, or maybe they haven't done enough. I don't know, but because a lot of denominations, they do see, stuff like AI as troublesome. They do see stuff like, life extension as sort of as they see life extension as transhumanism. They're not really able to just maybe distinguish between the two, or separate those two ideas. So, how would, how would the church be engaged in these conversations? I guess that's my question.
Okay.
Well, this is definitely a conversation that the church ought to be kind of at the forefront of, as far as at least trying to get to the point of answering the question of where is the line. How far should AI be allowed to go, and also to, as far as helping to guide society in terms of answering the question of what is the standard, in this, in terms of AI, what is the standard of protecting the human person,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and that's a big question, that's a really big question. And I don't think that's something that'll be very quickly or easily answered.
Right.
But I think you're right that it's the church that needs to be at the forefront of that. They don't have to be the only ones, but as far as discussing what it means for humanity and what it means morally, what it means for our faith, and really protecting the culture, which really is meant, as much as people may not like to admit it, the cultural water that we swim within, it's Christian,
Right.
So
Yeah.
so it does only make sense that the church would have a role in drawing the line.
Right. And the thing that I'm thinking here is, like, if the church can be so, if Christians can be so involved in sort of the culture wars, right, that we have going on today, right? They could, I always bag on the Methodists for being, like totally all out there with the, with the LGBTQ plus infinity, but
The third power, right?
the third power, right? But I guess that's my thing. It's like, if they can get behind that, and they can get so interested in that and be, down for that cause and all of that, right? Social justice, equity, and inclusion, right? Then why can't they engage in I suppose, what might seem to be more difficult questions, right? About the economy, about, the workforce, about AI, about life extension, about space, traveling, and stuff like that, right? Um, I, you know, you were speaking about Peter Thiel, David, and he had recently there was an article on the Hill, that was floating around, I think maybe 2 days ago, where he said, he thinks DeSantis will make a great president, right? So he said he would support DeSantis, but his
If
only
he makes it through
problem,
the primary, he said. So he didn't
yeah,
pick a character
yeah,
yet for the primary.
right, if he makes it through the primary, but he said, but one of his problems is he's got too much focus on the cultural war,
Yeah.
and he thinks that that's actually a distraction
Yeah, I agree.
from the real problems at hand, which is the economy, right? So, you know, that's I think that's the same thing you could say for the church though too. That the church, yeah,
Go ahead. Yeah.
that the church has been so caught up in trying to be on the side of, um, you know, quote unquote, on the right side of history, um, you know, leaning into, you know, which is not wrong, like caring for the poor, the downtrodden, those who are truly victims and stuff like that. Like, yes, that is part of the church's, I think, calling to be involved in that. But I think it's like hyper Christian. You know what I mean? It's like we're gonna focus on the most extreme, stuff, the transgender, those who feel like they are totally victimized, which in my view, I don't, I'm sorry to say, but I don't really feel like they have truly been in a state of victimization in the past, say, 10 to 15 years, because there's been a lot of progress politically and, socially to advance their causes, and I just think that, um, what you can say for what Peter Thiel said about these social distractions versus the economy can be said for the church as well. Can be said for Christianity as well, or Christians, particularly here in the West.
Well, and as far as the church goes, and this is across the board. It really does seem like if you want to go back to a particular like break in time, the 60s. And it's interesting that Peter Thiel hones in on the 60s and says that's when innovation stops, or when we I forget what exactly he said. He said
Stagnation or something.
Stagnation. That we became stagnant, and we moved into the bits over atoms. And at that time, it just seems like, at least in the West, the 60s was when we kind of, I don't think things had been right for a long time, but it seems like that's when we really gave birth to the baby of kind of like of cultural disorder. And it seems like ever since then, the church has been, rather than being at the forefront of what's happening in the culture, they've been kind of at the caboose, and like trying to like clean up, and I think you're absolutely right that the church, and also too, I think all of us as Christians, and also too as just sensible people, we need to be upstream rather than downstream.
See, it's not. Oh, go ahead.
And the last thing I was going to say is, in many ways, I think technology reflects the human heart. The technology and the innovations that we get, it will manifest what we most deeply desire. And what has social media done? It's made it's made sexual immorality a lot easier. It has made not associating with other human beings a lot easier. It has, and then as far as our phones and things, it's made it's broken down our communities. And you look back at what they called, I think they called it the dolce vita in Italian, which means like what like the rich life or the good life or something.
The sweet life.
Okay, all right, the sweet life. And what that refers to is how when a tourist goes and visits Italy, you know, the first thing that strikes them, I've never been there, but this is what I've heard. The first thing that strikes them is when they walk down those winding roads, you know, they smell delicious smells, you know, fragrances. You know, they eat delicious food, they drink delicious wine, and the things they're seeing are delicious for the eyes, you know, and because that whole place is built around incarnational living. And you can say the same thing about very old Christian places, you know, and I think today, I don't think it's a coincidence that our architecture is very bland and is really dilapidated. It's a reflection of what we desire. And I think artificial intelligence in many ways is a manifestation of this very slothful nature that we have developed in the West. You know, we're looking for AI to do everything for us, and not just do things for us, to free us up so that we can go and do other things and innovate, like what you were talking about, David, with energy. But it's freeing us up so we can do nothing. You know, we're, you know,
right,
like
exactly. That's my point.
Secular people are looking to AI to do the thinking and to do the innovating for them, so they can just sit around and become a cyborg.
Yeah, that's right. Because we're living in a faux Gnostic world. So it's a materialistic construct. We believe nothing exists but matter and chemicals and hormones and atoms and all that. And well, we don't know much about hormones, as we're doing to experiment with our children and the food that we eat, endocrine disruptors. We don't know anything about hormones. Actually, Dr. Ray Peat, the late great, knew a lot about hormones. Unfortunately, he's gone. And boy, was he right about, by the way, Noam Chomsky. On one of my last interviews with him before he passed away, Dr. Ray Peat said, I asked him about the political theorists, and he said Noam Chomsky was a figure of the intelligence group. He said that he was in his 80s when he passed, so he said that back in he was referencing when he was coming of age intellectually, that Noam Chomsky was a cutout, was propped up and completely a product of the intelligence agencies. And then we saw that revelation recently, where Noam Chomsky was palling around with Jeffrey Epstein and all that 100 times. But okay, so why do we have to live under the domain of the Jeffrey Epstein model, right? This disgusting, repulsive system that is dilapidated, right? That's the question. And there was something I might have missed it in my train of thought as we were talking here, but it's not about getting wealthy when you have energy. It's about innovating the area. It's about creating abundance in the area in which the alleviation of suffering can most effectively happen. Does that make sense? People oftentimes have a learned helplessness or a learned cynicism built into their thinking. They say, well, David, why do we need to have unlimited energy? Because then we'll become rich and decadent and debauched. No, that's not necessarily the case. We're not talking about having unlimited money for everybody. What we're saying is we want abundant post-scarcity materials for the things that create actual wealth. If we create an explosion of energy that's so affordable and so healthy for the environment and so decentralized is the key, what does that do for the cost of food? What does that do for the cost of building a home? What does that do for the cost of so many different things that we don't even see baked into our reality? And then what does that allow for young engineers and entrepreneurs to innovate further in that domain? And I believe that there are Christian things that we should do for, like you said, human-oriented forms of innovation, right? And like you said, making those cities walkable, where you smell the breads and you smell everything, and it's delightful. I've been to some of those European towns. You get off the train, and it's just, you smell this, you smell waffles, you smell this. And I know it's touristy and they're trying to get you around that area, but in general, you know, you go around and you see, and it feels like the city is alive. That's the way it should be. And yet, you know, we are a product of course, the car and automobile extending and pushing everything out. But I guess my point is that all of these overwrought things like AI are really a manifestation of us believing that there's nothing tremendously different that we can add to the physical world that we're in. Nobody believes cancer is going to be cured. You're not even allowed to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about diabetes being cured. You know, you see, I saw these people, they're mad and angry about this guy who choked out this guy who was acting like Michael Jackson, you know, and he choked him out to stop him because he said something about, I'm about to go to jail. And so he just did that. Now, I don't think.
You're talking about the Marine on the subway or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're saying, and of course, they're trying to make that into another race baiting war thing of all this. And it's like, why is all this stuff happening? Why is it that nobody has joy? Why is joy in short supply? Why? It was because we don't believe anything anymore. We don't believe it's possible to do anything wonderful anymore. We don't believe it's possible for our loved ones to not be suffering from diseases. We think that when we get old, we're going to suffer from the same diseases they have. If we're not already. Children already have diabetes at 3 because of their listening to the United States government's nutrition. Shame on those disgusting failures. They're failures at every other level. They are complete failure. But the problem is that Christians can't provide anything alternative.
That's
because all they can do is just talk about how bad it is.
Yeah.
So then when I try to talk about something to do, everybody's like, well, I don't know what to do. And I barely know what to do, but I know a few little things that I'm trying to catch, like catching a tiger by its tail, and nobody believes it. And the problem with Peter Thiel is that he doesn't believe in his own thesis enough. Because he even was called out in his interview with Barry Weiss. And he said, she said, you're worth several $1 billion. Why, if you really believe we're at a catastrophic turning point, potentially, that America can be saved, but it's going to take a tremendous amount of, why aren't you doing more? Look at how much success George Soros has had. And he admitted, he said, I could do more. But instead, you know,
but it's not only, you know, and I'm not,
it's not just him, but I'm just saying as an example.
And that, you know, that I think that's what's so frustrating about Christians in a way, is that they speak about, you know, a vision, you know, of the kingdom of God here on earth, you know, that will be done on earth as it is in heaven. You know what I mean? You know, if you think that way, then why is it just one area or one focus that you have, which has been sort of the main focus of the church since the 60s, which is civil rights and, you know, all these things about liberty for all human beings and stuff like that. But it's like it's just become like a cycle, you know, where like kids are being turned out in school to just go out and be social justice warriors. You know, ministers are coming out of schools, you know, seminaries to just become preachers for, Black people we're still being treated as second class citizens, you know, whatever, gays have no rights, you know, all of that. And it's just the same thing. And I think not only does that, that's the stagnation, but it also fuels more, more violence, like more frustration, and it's like, if the church can't get out of that climate, you know what I mean, and say like, this is obviously something that is being used to sort of control the population, in a way, if the church can't move in a different direction, I think Christianity will become like obsolete, bro. I really, I really do think that, and here's another thing. I think the church should be, for all the churches talk about family, the family unit and how important the family is, and marriage and all of that. The one thing they don't speak up for is the gender that's getting the most, blowback, which is men, the father, right? The male. Every time you go to church, it's everything about for the woman, the mother, the female. We have to protect the mother. We have to protect the dignity of the wife. We have to. I'm not saying that that's wrong. Okay, I don't want nobody coming on here saying that I'm saying that. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is I don't hear much in the way of the role of men in the family, right? In that unit of sacredness.
Well, ultimately, what is it? Let's do like an engineering experiment and then break it down. We would all like to live in a society where we could have a decent opportunity to, own some property. There's a lot of land in America, right? We want to be able to own property, have a safe place to live, and you want to be able to live in an environment in which you feel like you're surrounded by a community that has high trust, right? Low time preference, which means they can delay gratification for long-term goals, and they have great emotional control. They can regulate their emotions well. So that when you're at the gas station, I watched a video. They put these things on purpose. You just go on Twitter. You see this guy at a gas station. The guy gives him all the money, and then he still shoots him cold blood. Just sick, sadistic stuff. And you watch that stuff, and it creates that mean world syndrome where you start thinking the whole world's like that. And then you end up manifesting it in the way because you're nervous and anxious about crazy psychopaths everywhere you look.
Right.
And it's both real and not real.
That's
and,
right.
And you look at that and you say to yourself, okay, we don't want that. We want people who can control. I saw a video, another guy it looked like a guy, I don't know what it was, pulling on the hair of a Starbucks barista because they didn't get their mocha right. Pulling on them, hitting them, punching them, hitting their hair, punching them, screaming. And I'm thinking to myself, this isn't civilization. And we need to all fight for civilization. We should all be pro-civilization. We should all be able to have a society where people know how to handle their emotions. They can control their emotions. They can regulate their emotions. The Democratic Party is completely invested in making sure nobody can control their emotions. They don't want anybody. That is their entire brand. Vote for me and I'll let your emotions go crazy. Republicans too, but their brand's not quite as geared for that product. But the product that the Democratic Party is, you support me and I'll subsidize your emotions being completely uncontrollable, whatever you want.
Yeah.
On every level.
Fueling angst and anxiety. And that's the one thing, that's the one thing I see. It's like, and I was telling Shane this yesterday, we were talking about that. Like, it just seems like there's so much in the way of fueling angst and anxiety that the world is a dangerous place. And if you go outside, you better be fully cloaked in medieval armor because you never know who's coming, and I just don't understand who would want to really live in a world like that. I don't get it, man.
Shane, what are the ingredients if you want to create an environment in which everywhere you go around, you have high trust? You go to I talk about this example on an interview I did with Aaron McIntyre, who's on the Blaze Media, and and I said there is a urban farm in the middle of Tampa that will sell raw milk, and it's this old farmer, and he's in the middle of Tampa. It's not out in like a suburb, and he's basically in South Tampa, and he sells raw milk. And it's trust. You put the cash in, you get the milk. The things are all there for you to pick. You don't have to go in and check out with anybody. So it's auto pay. You put in the money, you take the milk. And that's a high trust society, right? In other countries, you can't do that. All your milk would be taken because people are in such dire poverty or low trust, sneaking, conniving. They see weakness, they take it. There's no trust. And that goes hand in hand with low time preference. This is the economic term that the Austrians are good about talking about. is that you can delay your consumption down the later date, right? Versus a high time preference where you want to blow your money or get the thing that you want now. And we don't have that. We have a high time preference society. We're starting to get a low trust society very quickly. And then we have low emotional regulation. So if I want to have a society where the result is well-regulated emotions, low time preference, and high trust, what's the sausage? What's the ingredients in that material, Shane? What gets you that?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have control. You have as much control as possible right there in the community over the community itself. Like the fact that farmer, owns his own farm, owns his own little dairy farm, and owns that little thing, and it's not a chain that's being dictated, whose rules are being dictated by some headquarters in Chicago or something. I think that's a really big part of it. I think us as humans, we naturally are communal. We're naturally we're naturally tribal, but we're naturally very communal. And I think that's one of the reasons that the more centralized a system becomes, the more surveillance and censorship it must have in order to maintain itself. So when you look at the example of that farmer, and you want to try to take that and you want to try to distribute that across the rest of the community, I think you've got to have, and this is a word, stakeholders. You've got to have stakeholders and owners in the community, and the World Economic Forum has perverted that word stakeholder, but you've got to have stakeholders there that live in the community, and also too, just thinking about the church, churches since the very beginning, since the apostles, have organized themselves into dioceses, and they never, the church never organized itself into a corporate structure based in one place, and all decisions at all times had to be made in one place, like the tower in Mordor, but you had a lot of local autonomy, and that's one of the big things. As we've become less Christian in the West, we have lost that orientation toward local control and local government and local governance over our affairs. And as we become less Christian, it's all been centralized, and it's not just government. You look at the way the businesses operate today. Mom and pop businesses used to govern the American economy. Now they're just a little facade. So what I would say is, first and foremost, you've got to have ownership, and the stakeholders, the people that actually have stake in entities and in businesses. I think that they've got to be local. It's got to be local.
And how would, if you could power your home with a 2 liter of ocean water having magnetic resonance, create energy at a sustainable level to power your home, how would that help you get there?
Well, that would be less ability for
in your car.
What that would be is, or what that would represent is, that's less ability of some centralized firm from being able to dictate my life, or be used as or control of that organization to be used as or for that organization to be used as a governing mediary to govern my life in some kind, in like the feudal system that the World Economic Forum is pushing. They do not want for you to have the ability to power your home off of off grid. Yeah. They desire everything to be powered on the grid, so that they can make so that the system can control everyone from one central headquarters.
So this is a battle between the gods of the city and the gods of the wilderness.
Yeah.
Yahweh's, Yahweh's in the God of the wilderness.
Yes, that's true. Yes. I think it's truly a battle of what we had since the founding of this country, right? Which is federalism versus, statehood, right? And of course, statehood got turned into, something which is defined as demonic because it was, it's been largely attached to, slavery or, agriculturalists who use human labor. But
yeah,
that's how you know you've been psyop, when two completely unrelated things are seared into your brain as the same thing. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's what it looks like to live in a psyop. Right. As soon as you say the word states' rights, there's some kind of voice that's been programmed into your head by the Truman Show to say racist.
Mm-hmm.
Less power in one city, you are bad. Wow. I wonder where that message came into my head,
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And yeah. It's,
but you wouldn't want your state, where you're at to run your life more, right? I mean, you kind of need
no, I would not want that. I would not want that. But the thing is that is it any better? Because this state, of course, is hand in hand with the government already. With the federal government. So, luckily, our dear governor is not running for another term for a term. So I don't know who's coming in next, but Jay Inslee, I wish you well, brother. Go do something else.
But I mean, you imagine, I think the future of the 21st century is a battle between the soil and the banks. He who heals the soil beats the banks. If you get flourishing, good soil that grows nutrient-dense crops at an affordable price in your local community, you can start to change the food system of how food is traveling, how food is priced, how dependent food is on energy. Now, if you bring in ocean water powering your car, your truck, that transports the food, how about what is the cost of an energy revolution to the cost of a house and all of that entails? How does that affect that? How does it affect it when you have elemental transmutation at room temperature? So you no longer have to blow into deep mines in the earth and fight with China over access to rare earth minerals. What if you can get all of your rare earth minerals extracted from recyclable trash that we're currently stuffed to the gills with in this country and around the world? What if you could pull out rare earth elements out of trash material and reuse them? Now, when I say this, we don't even have the capacity to accept this as a possibility. Even when I say it, I still feel like, well, maybe it's not true, but I've seen evidence of it. But I can't get anybody to pay attention to this because we're programmed to be serfs. We're programmed to be helpless, hapless, hopeless, hipless.
Mm-hmm. We're programmed to think that way, and but it's funny because Shay, you said something the other day. You said at the same time we have this mentality that especially a lot of people who want to talk about race and stuff like that. There's this inferiority complex, right? Like you're frustrated. You're frustrated about your situation. So what do you say? Well, I'm a king or I'm a queen or I come from the most dominant racial group in the world. You know what I mean? Like my ancestors were the strongest. Whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It kind of seems like every ethno supremacist that they have a superhero complex and they think that their superpower is their race.
Yeah. So I say that to say it's like, we're taught to be serfs, but we're exploited by media and like these pseudo historical narratives to make ourselves feel better about our identity at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And God can be used as a crutch like that too,
Yeah. Right.
And you're right though. Most people are now being taught to treat their race as a god.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, like physically, like you're in a state of stagnation.
Yeah.
But mentally, you can have this distraction that, like,
Yeah.
I am somebody. You know
That's
what I mean?
opium
Like,
for the masses, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Because you feel
yeah,
say, well, my team is a super team, but the only reason why I'm in my situation right now is that we've decided to just let you guys have it for now because we're just busy
right.
relaxing, and or some kind of conspiracy to suppress or something like that. There's always some kind
Right.
of like conspiracy theory, and they do that for like gender too, like they teach little girls, and it's really evil what they're doing. What they teach, like even that Super Mario movie, which was not nearly as woke as Disney and stuff. But like there's a scene where the little Princess Peach, has to teach Mario how to do all the moves, and she can do everything effortlessly, and Mario fails over and over and over and over and over and over again. And at the end of it, he's barely hanging on, and he says, "Well, you probably got it on the first time," and she says, "No. Actually, I did, but I don't want to hurt your feelings, And it's like, and you think to yourself, what good character, what idiot writes that, right? Like, if you like women's empowerment, you have to understand that women have to work hard for whatever it is they want to be empowered about, right? They're going to have to work hard. But when you teach little girls from a young age, even a relatively non-woke movie has to follow the catechesis of Hollywood and the dogmas of the religion that Hollywood has, that you have to teach someone, like, so your avatar on screen, everything just comes handed to them. They did everything perfectly on that obstacle course the first time. Now, for the little boys to look up to Mario, it looks like a model that you're going to be realistic. Lots of falling, lots of hurt, lots of mistakes, lots of false bravado. I mean, you're learning through this little character lessons about life. When I think I've mastered something, when I think I've mastered my job, don't be an arrogant, hubristic prick. Because you might be just like Mario and get whacked and fall down in the water. So the little boy is actually in some ways learning, but then in their relationship to the female, they're learning, well, but this is like a God figure. This God figure shows up, and it's like, they call it the Mary Sue character, or like, it's like this thing has hacked it. It just shows up first time, nails it, everything.
Yep.
And just, can you please just try to keep up? They're trying to create mimetic rivalry between the genders, obviously. But they're also doing young girls a disservice, because whether a girl wants to be a princess or a cook or a G.I. Jane or whatever it is that they want to be excellent at, it will take a lot of hard work, failures, false bravado, learning not to be like that, learning to be humble, and they don't learn any of that in these characters. It's just instant cheat mode. And it's like some kind of like female reparations for the fact that so long Princess Peach was always rescued by Mario from the dragon from Bowser. So now it's like female reparations. Like I think that's what they're playing through in their brain, these little screenwriters in Hollywood. Like, who's writing this? And they're like subconsciously, like, what's their paint box they're pulling from? They're like, this is like reparations for all the time Mario had to save you. It's like, she has to be super overpowered and has no character flaws, nothing to learn, just perfect, holy, which, I don't think that's a recipe for success for a culture.
Yeah.
Well, and what it's doing is it's teaching it's promoting a complete break with reality, because the actual fact and reality is that we have men's sports and women's sports for a reason.
Exactly,
so that women will actually be able to play, and it's because sports are based upon your ability to compete and win, and that's the reason that we have men's sports and women's sports. But what that movie is teaching is a complete break with reality, and that's one of the reasons that it's a rude awakening every single day for people that have come to believe that as part of their frame for understanding reality, that the whole mantra of anything you can do, I can do better. That women can compete and can compete, and that the average woman can compete and win against the average man, physically in sports. That's absurd. And so it's going to be interesting to see the way they end up playing the whole sports thing. Yeah. Because eventually at some point or another, reality always comes back to bite us in the butt.
Right.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, but what you're doing is that is a totalitarian move where you try to get society to basically believe in a lie they all know is a lie, and they just go along with it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, like this idea that like, oh, women can beat up men. You watch these movies and the men are getting their tails beat like the Mandalorian. They're just getting their. I watched that show and they had, you know, they're always just can barely even keep up with all the punches of the little girl that's like half their height. You know, the woman they're fighting. You know, and then you always have those little nerds that are told to like the slop of their comic book or pop culture. And so they say, "Oh, how you're threatened that a strong woman can beat up a man." I know there's people that can do that. And it's so dumb, right? They have learned to be functional AI widgets. These people that they just, you know, they just regurgitate the same unthinking thing. But look, we have subsidized this stupidity. We have subsidized this stupidity because we don't do anything. You know, the church is most famous for being against abortion, against gay marriage, and pro-Iraq war and all that stuff. The church has become an outlet for foreign powers to completely dictate the sermons of the speeches that they give on their Sunday mornings that are supposed to be the word of God. Churches have become literal arms dealers for countries abroad. Churches have become complete money laundering operations for arms dealers, selling people on wars. And so it's no wonder that these dumb nerds wake up and they say, I don't like the church. They fall into the hands of the glitz, the glittering sheen of pop culture and all of its religion, because they're inundated with it. So it's hard to have the kind of intellectual capacity and emotional fortitude and social courage to even resist the program. But when you see the church being such an abysmal failure on the matter of war and all these fundamental issues about what makes a civilization functional and healthy and sane and moral, then it's almost like no wonder we're in this situation. But all it takes, in my opinion, is for the churches to start talking about. I don't want to hear any more about these trad all these stuff. Let's start talking about how to find the Nikola Teslas. Nikola Tesla should be the saint of the church. You know?
Well, they should at least be, that's where they should come from. You know, that's where the incubation process should start, right? It's in the church, right? So that when they go out into the world, they say, you know, it's by the grace of God, you know what I mean? It's with the help of the Lord that I was able to do this.
Yeah.
Right.
Tesla's dad was a priest. His mother was a genius as well. And he would have splitting migraines where he'd see visions of things he needed to do. You know, it sounds like a saint in the process of becoming one, you know, possibly. And you look at this and you say to yourself, this is a guy who he knew that he was different. He would wiggle his toes 100. He would do 100 wiggles of his toes every day to keep his brain firing full cylinders. You know, this is a guy who dressed impeccably. He was the best dressed person in his area in New York because he knew that dummies who are going to be superficial are going to be focused on that. And he was kind of different and oddball. So he made sure that he beat all the dummies at their social status game by dressing the most impeccably to kind of overcompensate for the fact that he's going to be a little bit wired differently. That's the kind of folks we need to be looking for to call saints or to elevate as role models. When I use the word saint, I'm using that in a loose term to talk about role models that we really admire and want to talk about and learn from. It should be somebody whose not second nature is to be focused on dress, but who has the understanding to say, I should probably put on this impeccable suit if I'm to get the kind of investment I need to continue my vision of creating my tower to power the world with his ideas.
Yeah.
He's become a meme. He's become a defanged meme, just like George Jenkins at Publix and so forth. Everybody becomes something that what would they have done, right? Even the Tesla car company. Well, this is what, you know, this is like looking back in homage at Tesla, but Tesla would never do that. Tesla would never make a car company that's using outdated technology and giving reference to a character from 100 years ago. You know what I mean? That's the opposite of what Tesla would do, but that's the best we can get is the Tesla car brand. You see what I mean? That's considered Tesla today. is Elon Musk thing, which is great. I'm not talking down about what he's done, but that's all we have is a guy who's repurposing outdated technology in homage of people who did futuristic technology for their time from 100 years ago and say, look, again, direct to video sequel. This is, this is not the Tesla showcase of the powering the world in front of battling Edison and powering at the World's Fair. We're not there. We're just doing an homage to that and doing,
right.
420 jokes while we talk about how to make batteries from China or whatever more like affordable or something. That's not a 0 to 1 moment. That's not a profound. I mean, it's good, but that should be the middle of the road of what we're doing. That shouldn't be the avant-garde, but that's our avant-garde and for what we're aware of.
Yeah. Oh man.
Well, and too, I think a big part of it is our financial system. Because the way our financial system works, it serves as like a giant vacuum cleaner that sucks ownership of assets, and by assets what I mean are like land, buildings, businesses, all sorts of things. It's like a vacuum, and it sucks ownership of them upwards, up and out of the local communities, and it creates this whole vertical integration thing, which vertical integration is not always a bad thing, but it creates these big massive towers, and these towers, especially these towers are all controlled by the credit markets, and the credit markets are all controlled by Wall Street, and Wall Street is controlled by its mothership, which is in the city of London. So what it does is I think our system, it's the finest the central economic planning has to offer, because it takes the best of what the market economy has, but then through printing funny money and inflating the currency and debasing the currency and everything, what you end up doing is average working people, they get poorer over time. And then the people that are very close to the teat from which all the new credit and money get printed from, those are the people that end up owning the assets, and they're beholden to the people that are printing the money. And the people that are printing the money are not the people that you and I vote for in elections.
Yep.
Not to put a tinfoil hat
Elections
on
are pro wrestling. They're a distraction. And if you believe that the ideas are really being seriously considered in an electoral way, then you believe that the Undertaker is really a wizard warlock character, and that Hulk Hogan really got that big by eating vitamins and praying every day instead of steroids or whatever it was that may have been involved. You know what I mean? That's how. Yeah. What's that?
Said he was drinking Gatorade.
I mean, the people who believe that elections is where things can happen. I mean, they're like the people who believe that Kane, remember Kane, the wrestler, he wore a mask, and and they kept saying that his face was burned in a horrific accident, but you could clearly see through the side view and stuff that it was a normal face under there. And when they revealed his mask, they put a little black makeup on it to make it look like he was burnt. And some people really believe that was truly a burnt victim. That was a little goblin from hell, and it was just they put black mark on it, and people still believed it. That's the level of where we're at here. That's the level of cultural awareness that we're at.
Yeah. And I think that communities are being stripped and have been stripped of ownership, and I think when you strip people of ownership in the traditional Western sense of what ownership means, which is you have the ability to kind of to be a steward of that item or that property or whatever it is, that you're the one who's kind of like governing it within a set of constraints. I think when you remove ownership from people, they lose a lot. And I think it's very easy for those people, especially when they live in a place where ownership is scant it's all outsiders. It's a bunch of aliens living in the mothership and on Wall Street that own everything. I think that they end up adopting a sense of hopelessness, a sense that they don't have the ability to buy in the way that the singing Italians and stuff could buy into the Dolce Vita, and I think that's a major problem. I think it's a big problem in the Black community. And Shannon, I told you the other day, I think mainline white people, I think mainline white people are only like 10 or 15 years behind Black people, because and I think it's this sense. I think it's people have to have a sense of ownership, and whatever and at the end, I don't think the prescription is some like is the totalitarianism that grows out of populism that says we're going to redistribute resources and things. I think what it is, we have to deal with the underlying system, and the problem in the underlying system, in my opinion, are the credit markets. It's the way that we print money in this country. And it's the way that we manipulate credit markets. And ironically, your average person is never taught a thing about credit markets. They're never taught a thing about debt, and they're never taught a thing about budgeting and managing money. And that means that they're never going to have buy-in. They're never going to experience real ownership. And I think the path of least resistance for those people, not always, but I think the path of least resistance for those people is a sense of hopelessness. And it's tragic. And I think, as I think the church should be doing more for those people and should be reaching out to those people, because the ultimate cure, the ultimate medicine for the hopeless is Jesus Christ,
But do we understand like how amazing it would be for relationships and these ethno-narcissistic things that are developing if people could just watch like diabetes go away, for example, or cancer scares people. Everybody feels like they're going to get arrested if you mention something could happen to cancer. That's how psyop that word is. Remember? Yeah. States' rights, racism, cancer cure, prison. We've been learned all these things, or assassination. We have learned all these things through some, programming. Yeah. You can't even think about these. If you want to know how programmed you are, look at the most exciting, fun things that give you joy, and then watch how something comes into your mind that you didn't put there that tells you, don't touch, you're in danger, right? How many things? I mean wholesome things now. I mean wholesome things. I'm talking wholesome things.
It's the truth. It's the truth. Yeah. Look, you could literally be thinking, it's okay to see some kind of cataclysmic thing, or like, what just happened in Atlanta, like, this guy shot up the hospital or whatever, right? But you think about going outside, it's a nice day, it's sunny. No, don't think about that. You know what I mean? You can't enjoy a walk in the park.
Yeah. Don't eat your food because it's got seed oils in it and endocrine disruptor, microplastics, and all this stuff. But it's like they get you on both levels. They get you on being ignorant, then you get sick. Then if you become aware of it, then they get you sick and stressed out because of how everywhere it is.
Right.
So, and all of this is driven by death anxiety. It's all driven by this desire, this denial of death. And we talked about that in a recent discussion I did with some other individuals that was fruitful, with James Cortides and some other people that he knows. But, all this is a wrestling with, it's like a struggle with death anxiety. People, and one person in the discussion described it as death anxiety is not coming to terms with the fact that you would die. And I think that's a part of it. But it's also, death anxiety is accepting that you're going to die in some way. It's a paradox. It's both. You accept that you're going to die, so therefore you have a finite time to get what's yours.
Right.
And I can't get started. I got to make my money now, not when I'm 70, because then I won't be, for why? If you're going to live forever, like Jesus says, then that doesn't matter what, if your wealth gets built at 72. I mean, that's just literally a pre-show warm-up to the rest of your life. But we don't really believe that. We don't have enough faith to truly believe that. And we look at all the pain and suffering around us, and it confirms why our faith is weak.
Right. Right.
But that's really what's driving it. Death reigns over us.
Yeah. And it continuously is regurgitated in your mind, just about everywhere you go. Right. That's, like even with, like with the death anxiety, I think that's one of the reasons why we have sort of all this, drama within the media and stuff like that, because people want to feel a sense of, well, first of all, human beings like drama, right? We like,
they love it.
We like problems, right? As long as it's not us, right? But it gives us a sense of life, right? But I think that's really driven by the fact that, we have that sense of, well, what else, what else do I have to live for? What else is interesting if I can't, because I can't really enjoy life. I can't really, I don't really have real friendships, right? The church is not really a wholesome place to be. My family is out of control, what have you. So, what else is there, right? Other than, watching housewives of Atlanta beat up on each other every whatever Thursday night, it's, but I mean, in me saying that, right, that is, again, that kind of like reinforces that idea that, I think, we all kind of buy into it. It's somewhere or another that, maybe the future is not as bright. Right. But I want to, I'd like, it's the same thing I say about the AI, right? It's like, it doesn't have to be totally pessimistic. It doesn't have to be totally optimistic. Like the only way that it's going to be optimistic is if human beings actually engage and decide to do something, right? The only way it's going to be pessimistic is if we sit in the stagnation.
And they'll just imitate. All it takes is just one to get this process started.
Yeah.
And all this, I think what we need is less government control, less government coercion built into our institution. But we can't get there tomorrow. And so the way you get that message across to the public is with down payments through signs and wonders, curing diseases with inexpensive or dietary corrections, and watching that flourish, watching people mimetically imitate your dietary corrections or nutritional or whatever repurposed drug interventions you employ to cure diseases around the community. And then at the same time that that's happening, that's a down payment on your authority. That's a down payment on life is there. And then you heal the soil. You heal the soil so that you can have food that's nutritionally rich and that you can have an incentive for farmers to keep farming instead of turning it into endless government-owned suburbia nightmares or apartment complexes where it's all government controlled and nobody owns anything or whatever because they're all leveraged, like either they don't own or they're leveraged by these, paper pushers in Wall Street. But paper pushing in Wall Street is not a family-friendly environment. Having a little bit of a farm in your backyard, that's a family-friendly environment. Having energy too cheap to meter in your backyard is a family-friendly environment. And that's when you start to have the control over the terms of your relationships. That's when you can start to say, excuse me, government, you're outdated. We're not letting you monopolize the terms of marriage covenants anymore. It was never yours to do so in the beginning, but we're going to go ahead and take that power back. Thank you. And as you start to do that, you have nutrition that's good and wholesome and local. You have economic dollars staying in the system. You have energy staying in the system locally. You have innovations in housing staying in the system. You have diseases being cured without expensive medical care and insurance and government and nursing homes that people rot away for decades in. All these things start to evaporate. And all of a sudden you start to have a spirit of wonder and joy. Now you start to have families in covenantal agreements made by the churches that are actually integrity. So if the Methodists want to do their stupid things, their church will wither away in divorce chaos and they'll just extinguish. And if other churches want to be real churches and start getting their act together, they'll create environments in which children can be put first and foremost, not as an afterthought that to be disparaged and put into government schools. And so as you see these things go holistically in hand, local schooling, private schooling flourishes when you have local rich soil and local food and local energy production for your house and your car that's not metered by Iraq war, not metered by Saudi Arabia or Syria or Ukraine prices. You see what I mean? When you have everything local, now the father is much more of a powerful figure in relationship to the far off government. Now you've changed the balance of the equation. And now you can start to set the terms in a way that's more pro-human. I think that's what God wants us to do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys see the culture, or do you see America breaking, I guess really the West breaking really into two camps? One that's incarnational, and then the other one that's just not.
Yeah, like, just plugged up to AI 24/7.
Yeah, that will willingly turn itself over intellectually and in every way it possibly can to AI, and then the rest of us are going to be out just living, or at least attempting to live incarnationally. Like, is that what you see?
I mean, maybe that's what Jesus meant by separating the wheat from the chaff, or the goats from the sheep.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, David, you talked about God being a God of the wilderness, right? Like getting away from the city, he's not a God of Babylon, right? He's a God of the wilderness. So maybe that is, that separation. Maybe that's a marker of the separation that, will come to pass. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta get out of the city, man. Stop hanging around with these.
Yeah, because like I remember the very first thing that really made me start thinking along those lines, that it seems like our society is really going two different directions. There's a fork in the road. There was that. This might have been, I don't know, like 6 months ago, maybe like 9 months ago or something, but some CGI video came out from some German university, and it was showing artificial wombs, and it looked like the Matrix, and they were saying that was the future. In fact, I think it was a video trying to get investors to invest in this German company that was going to be working on creating artificial wombs, and that it would all be governed by AI, that babies would be incubated in these half metal, half glass egg looking things, and that you would get the perfect baby and stuff. And I started thinking, this isn't even 1984. This is Brave New World, type of stuff. And it seems like that's the direction. I don't know. It feels like, I guess, that's where everything is going in this culture. So I guess, the thing that I mentally wrestle with is, at what point do we pull out and try to create parallel institutions? Or is that really even something we can do? Because it's not like geographically the people of one camp are here, and then the people of the other camp are here. We're all intermingled and mixed together.
Mm-hmm.
So can you really create parallel institutions? And let's say the answer is no, that you can't. How do we take the culture back? I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
what do you think?
I mean, again, like for me, I mean, I don't know, man. I think, like when God says, "Come ye out from among them," that kind of thing. Like, it really, I do think it's sort of like a first step where, like if you're gonna follow God, you're choosing to follow God, you're gonna make the first step to kind of get out of Sodom and Gomorrah, right? And then, you know, let God do his thing, you know, after that, you know what I mean? You know, just, you know, if there are one or two in the land that are good, you know what I mean? Let us leave first, and
Yeah.
whatever happens after that, you know, is God's will, you know. But I do think that, you know, we're sort of headed in a direction where people are starting to see that they're going to have to make a choice, you know, as to the way they want to live their life.
Yeah.
And you know, this is where it's kind of like, you know, hey, I'm not going to be judgmental, but I believe in what the Bible has foretold. It's a warning. I want to take heed to it, and you know, um, you know, you do what you need to do. You know what makes you. I mean, that's what Abraham said to his nephew. You know, he said, "I'm not gonna stop you, man. You know, you go your way, I'll go mine." You know, but then he had enough compassion, you know, and enough love for his nephew to even question God.
Yeah.
You know, say, well, what if there's a couple in the land that, you know, whatever, you know what I mean? He whittled it down, you know. I think that that's the side in which Christians, you know, see that's where we have the power, right? That's where we have the final sort of like the upper hand, right? Because we can be we can be we can turn around and say, even though you decided to go that way, even though you decided to stay in the city, even though you decided to, you know, be all in with the state, whatever, you know, I'm still gonna love you enough to accept you and bring you into the fold.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can leave and come over here. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Something that they probably wouldn't do for us. You
No.
know?
No, they wouldn't.
Yeah. You know.
But we have to wrap it up here because I gotta go. But it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, David, thank you.
Take care.
All right.